Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another Retro Adventures. Because this is part of the series where I'm looking at adventures from the very dawn of role-playing. So this time we're going to be looking at Dungeon Module G3, Hall of the Fire Giant King, which is the third part of what would later be combined together to become Against the Giants, along with Steading over the Hill Giant Chief and Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl. And it's very obvious that when these were wrote, they were supposed to be parts of the same storyline, because they do flow into one another very, very well. It's not just that there's a few clues here, they basically continue right through. But then again, they also do continue into Descent into the Depths of the Earth, which is the first part of what became Vault of the Drow. And these two are connected, which makes sense because they did publish them as The Spider Queen, I think it was called, which combined all 6 adventures along with some extra information. Because it's one storyline, it is quite epic, and I do like what Gary Gygax was trying. As I've said with the previous 2 parts, this is a jump ahead in adventure design from everything we saw before. Because the first published adventure, The Palace of the Vampire Queen, was very, very basic, just stating out the important stuff. You know, there's 50 gold pieces in this, and it's guarded by a vampire. Nothing about the rooms at all. And then Dave Arneson came along with Temple of the Frog. And he created something which gave the rooms purpose, even if he didn't really describe them. So he would say, there's a room here with some guards, and every hour they go and patrol the town square. So you would know what the room is and what its purpose was, and you could populate it with equipment and details based on that. But it still didn't lay out exactly what was in the room. Whereas Gary Gygax has started detailing more. He doesn't give us the blocks of text that you would expect in a modern adventure, where you just read out a description. But he does tell you, you know, there's a table here with 4 chairs around it, and there's 4 figures seated in the chairs, and there's bags hanging on hooks at the side of the room, and the creatures are these stats, there's treasure in those bags, etc., etc. It's far more detailed, and as I've said, a massive jump ahead of everything else. Now, the first part, the Steading on the Hill Giant Chief, was a really quite interesting adventure, because there were different ways of approaching it. Whereas Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl was far more straightforward. Basically, you were just questing into a dungeon. There was no variety in there at all. You were just fighting monsters, going in, going out. There was one way into each level, etc. Very, very straightforward. But Hall of the Fire Giant King does seem to have some interesting ideas in there. But let's start having a look through. So we've got details on the front here. This module contains background information, referees' notes, 3 level maps, and exploration matrix keys. It provides a complete module for play for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. It can be played alone or as the last part of a 3-part expedition adventure, which also employs Steadying the Hill Giant Chief, Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl. If you enjoyed these, watch out for the release of the next series, D1 to D3, Descent into the Depths of the Earth, which continues where this series ends. And as it says, copyright 1978, TSR. And we go inside, and we've got some maps straight off. We've got the entrance level, we've got the second level, and we've got the third level, which is a far more crude cave structure. A repeat of the front page, and then we're into the adventure. And there's a lot of background here. So we've got the setting up of the background explaining what's happened in the previous 2 adventures. Then we've got where the players are starting, whether they've been transported here from the last adventure or whether you're dropping them in. And then there's a lot of notes for the Games Master. It really goes into details. It's got some of the stuff before which I've seen as Gary Gygax's hesitation to just write an adventure that people will use. You know, there's a lot of detail in here, but you don't need to be bound by it. He's really wanting people to create for themselves, which was his opinion about Dungeons & Dragons. But then we go over to the page, and it talks about when the party retires from the hall, the fire giants will lay whatever traps and ambushes they are able to under the circumstances. Because this seems to be set up as a siege. Whereas you'll often get adventures where the players are in a castle and they're getting attacked, and they have to organise the defences. This is the players being the assault, and it's detailing out how the giants will defend against it. So not only do the players go back and rest and relearn spells and heal themselves up and ready themselves for the next assault on the dungeon, they haven't just left the dungeon in a static state. It's not that they've cleared half of the dungeon, so now they've got to clear the other half. The giants will be doing things. They'll be setting traps. They'll be refreshing their own magics. They might be setting ambushes in areas which the players already thought was safe. It's an interesting idea. So anyway, we carry on. We've got the giant bag contents because the treasure isn't laid out by location. There's just certain bags and you roll on the table to see what you find. And then we've got the key to level 1. There's wandering monsters as usual, and this is the entry level with throne room and audience chamber. King Snur's private quarters, caves, treasure caves, different trunks which are within it, advisor's chamber, there's door guards, storage chambers, just a usual sort of entrance level. There's barracks here, communal quarters, kennel keepers, so there's various things here, including a cursed sword, I see. And then you go down into the second level, Hall of the Dead Kings. This dark hall contains 20 huge sarcophagi, standing upright along the walls, and 4 even larger ones lay upon the floor. Those upon the floor are of stone. U and V have stone likenesses of fire giants carved upon their lids. You know, it's quite detailed and gives you a lot of information to work on. But we carry on. There's guards' chambers, torture chambers, guard rooms, the Temple of the Eye, with illusion walls which screen the area, a priest's area, and then we meet the Drow, because while we've been following the trail of more powerful giants, going through from the hill giants to the frost giants and now to the fire giants, behind it all is the Drow. So this is where their connection comes out, and will lead us on to the next part. But we've got Drow clerics, guest chambers, and then we're on to level 3. Because we're both the hill giant Steading and the caverns of the frost giants were 2 levels, we've got 3 levels here. This is a slightly longer adventure, not massively so. There's a little less on each level, but it is more adventure for your money, let's put it that way. So we carry on through. Great vaulted caverns, caves, we're going down into the depths of the earth. Because that's the way the adventure leads. As you beat the fire giants, the Drow end up retreating into further caves beneath, which will lead you into the Underdark and assaulting the Drow in the next part of the story. Red Cavern of Infernalness. We've got details for the Drow here. This is basically introducing them, talking about their history. You know, they split off from the other elves. It talks about how they use different types of magic. And we've got special notes on page 16 here of how Drow magical equipment fades with contact with sunlight. The weapons become pitted and rusted with sunlight, potions lose their power, cloaks fall into tatters. So you can power the Drow up with a bunch of equipment, which is no use to the players, because as soon as they go out into the sun, it's destroyed. But there's a whole load of information about the Drow, their motivations, and their culture. We're getting a lot of background information here indeed. We've got a nice picture of one of the fire giants, and then we've got the back cover where it introduces what's going to be available, including D1, Descent into the Depths of the Earth, Shrine of the Kuatoa, and Vault of the Drow. And we've got the S-series adventures as well, Tomb of Horrors, White Plume Mountain, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, and we've got Village of Homlet being introduced, Hidden Shrine of Tamoachan. So this is the culmination of Against the Giants, and it's a really interesting twist on things. Instead of just dungeon delving, it does make it out more like a military assault, where you're attacking, retreating, attacking again. It's different quests or assaults on the fire giants, taking things in an interesting direction. I think it's a really nice ending to Against the Giants. And going over the three adventures in the series, Steading and the Hill Giant Chief was a fantastic start. Such interesting way to give people options in ways adventures had never really done before. Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl was very, very straightforward. And then we get this interesting finale, which leads us on to further mysteries, but gives us different ways of doing things again. These adventures really were innovative, not just in the way they described things, but how they approached the whole idea of adventuring. But anyway, I think I've whittled on for quite long enough as usual. So thank you very much for watching as always. But most of all, you look after yourselves. And I'll catch you later. Bye now.